Joining me now to discuss this and more of this is development economist, Dr. Emeka Okengwu. Dr. Okengwu, thank you very much for your time.
It's always a pleasure. Thank you for having me. Good afternoon, Nigerians.
Yes, our budget was delivered by President Buhari and tagged Budget of Economic Recovery and Resilience for the year 2021. First, let's start with what do you see or what do you make of this spending plan? Do you believe this can really take us out of the woods?
Well, it's still what it is you called it. It's a plan. It's a proposal, okay? And until the National Assembly, gives assent to it, it doesn't become a bill. So in discussing this plan, you must discuss it, with the full understanding that it can get into the National Assembly and every figure that you've read out now can be changed. But in the spirit of what it is has happened, since this new Senate has come in, we can be able to safely say that, yes, there's every possibility that is going to be passed into a bill with maybe little or no alterations. But remember that each time I have a conversation with you, what I always tell you is that a budget is a financial plan that you have couched in figures. And what should worry you more is not the expenditure. What should actually get your interest should be your revenues. Okay, for us, we're discussing the plan as it is. I think it's a very realistic plan. It's something that deals, ties to the socio-economic realities that we have on ground. And if you also aggregate the major areas, focus areas of development, which will now be, I think our greatest challenge in the country now is defense. If you ramp up, what was allocated to defense, internal affairs, and police, you're getting close to about 1 trillion. The next would have been your infrastructure. If you also ramp up what was given to works, power, housing, it's about in the neighborhood of 800 billion. But these are fine figures if we can be able to get the money. What should worry us as a country is how are we able to first and foremost make certain that we keep the deficit at a manageable level and then have the income streams to be able to now form the main lines of the budget.
Now let's look at what we had in 2020 despite COVID-19 challenges. Now, would you now say we've done well with, like what's happening with health? We've seen a little bit of increase, more than 100%. And also with defense, I see that a significant improvement. Now, what do you make, particularly focused to health? What do you make of this figure?
It's fine. 110 million, 10 billion for health, for me, is not adequate, but it's fine. But again, you can put in 1 trillion for health. If you don't have the revenue to be able to fund your health program, isn't going to work. That's the point I'm trying to make, and it's important we appreciate it. And if you're talking about the performances of the last year budget, the moment COVID came, everything stopped. The budget stopped. So what it is we're now doing is we're running a stimulus program where everybody were just micromanaging to be able to see how we can be able to get out. I mean, getting into a recession shouldn't be what should worry us. But looking inwards to be able to see what we can be able to gain, from this COVID outbreak, it's not all bad news for a country that has the resources we have. We can turn it around. You understand what I'm saying? So our major focus should not be how much you have given to health, which is what I'm trying to say, but it is how much you can be able to generate for health. This is another story altogether. You can allocate 110 billion to health, and then by the end of it, the releases to health might be maybe 20 or 30% of that total funds. You can only release when you have the revenues that can be able to support it. And again, because we're going to be having, over 4 trillion in deficits, it simply means that there's going to be a lot of borrowing. Now, this should also now call to question our borrowing capacity and our credibility. These are the kind of things that we must be interrogating in this new budget.
Now, before we talk of proper implementation, which is key, many have also said Nigeria is gradually returning to the January to December budget cycle. Do you think this will, because it's supposed to aid proper implementation and monitoring, do you see that as the way to go as you see in this document?
Yes, but I think there's a better way to go. I would rather we have, the 3-year rolling plan. Okay, where we now have budget systems that run for 3 years on a rolling basis. The one year period also has its challenges. Okay, yes, it's a good thing we have stated, right? But that shouldn't be, the end. It should be the means to the end. The end is for us to be able to have a country that operates a budgetary system that now has that's on a rollover basis. So that along the lines of the MTEF, you can also now start building, your budgets. So that the 3-year rolling plan now allows you time to be able to, do proper budget scrutiny, budget analysis, program analysis, oversight, and all that. So I think that is what is missing. The 1-year thing, January to December is good. Okay, I mean, it gives that fiscal responsibility. But I think that in us being able to take it to the proper stage where national budgeting against national development, should be, we must, I advocate that we go to the 3-year, rolling plan structure.
Now, debt is something that is very worrisome in all of this. And according to the Debt Management Office, Nigeria's debt currently stands, I think, above 30 trillion naira. Now, what do you make of this? If we're to follow the last year's budget, that's almost times 3 of our budget. That's almost 3 years budget running. But we're doing 13.8, so 0.8 at this time. But what do you make of this large chunk of money?
That shouldn't worry you. That shouldn't worry you. What should worry you is what you're doing with your debt. Each time we talk, I keep telling you this. Debt should not worry you at all. Because some of the infrastructure you're putting this debt in wouldn't come up overnight. Right? If you are injecting money to be able to build, critical infrastructure that can begin to now move your goods and services from where they are locked in, you can be sure that, and that is why most of these debts do not have a 2-year or 3-year repayment programs. They have 10 years, 15 years, 20 years repayment programs, are very low, and sometimes 1 year, 2 years moratorium. Now, what is important is what are you applying these debts to? You can borrow $1 trillion, 1 trillion naira to be able to make certain that you have your load value, like in the case of your transportation infrastructure, which is critical for your development. You can borrow that money to be able to put inside your energy, which is very critical to your development. Now we're talking about gas as a major, development support program. Now, you must be able to build those gas gathering, gas transportation, gas storage, gas cleaning, infrastructure. It's going to be costing a lot of money. Okay, so when you now hear that these debts are being burgeoning out of, no, they are not. Don't bother about borrowing money. When somebody comes to say to you, lend me money, the first question is that, are you going to use this money to eat chicken? Are you going to invest it in a business? If he's going to invest in a business, then you should be more interested in his cash flow, in his project plans, in the business development plan, in his feasibility. So each time people talk about Nigerians' debt growing, I say to them, what are you putting the money you're borrowing against? And what periods of time would you require for these monies to begin to now return on the investments? What is what they call in development your break-even point? At what level are you going to be reaching that your break-even? Sometimes a typical business development cycle will take between 3 to 5 years. So it's not anything out of the ordinary, and nothing we should lose sleep over, really, except, of course, we are borrowing to spend or to just pay salaries and do recurrent expenditure. Then we'll be in trouble.
Sectoral allocation remains key to achieve the positives of budgeting. We identified just earlier health sector and also increase in the education sector too by a little bit of percentage. Now, what do you make at this moment now of capital projects in this document, highlighted in this document? A lot of capital projects in this document. What do you make of all of them? A lot of them I read through: agriculture, capital intensive projects, roads, and all of that. How do you see us achieving all of this? If not 100%, 80%.
Nigeria is the only country that has an agriculture that is still at the ministerial level. Okay, other countries have been able to get agriculture to contribute to their GDP, have been able to establish, programs or establishments like the NNPC. So you should be talking about, Nigeria should be talking about a major agri-corp, an agri-corporation that can, start aggregating this massive 86 million, hectares of land and then turning them into production sites. Okay, so when you talk about this heavy expenditure in agriculture, I rather say to you, why don't we now talk about those agricultural streams that can begin to now unlock, our resources? Can we be able to decouple our crops from our medicinal, from our forage, from our livestock, from our poultry, from our small ruminants, et al., et al. Now, this will be requiring a lot of infrastructure to do if you are going to be getting it right. So all the other sectoral allocations, and again, you're talking about allocations to infrastructure. If you don't have those allocations, getting the foreign funding, which actually you require, 80% of infrastructure funding are not locally done. Okay, this is where your PPPs will come in. Okay, this is where your private sector will come in. If you now have government probably now budgeting money to be able to do technical audits, development funding, plans and all, and then having government taking those plans to feasibility levels, then getting banks or investors or angel capitalists or venture funds to be able to get in to now begin to now build your PPP, probably based on two models. Model number one will be for you to borrow and then secure the loan. Model number two, which I always advocate, is for you to now use what they call the project-based, finance model or the cash flow finance model, which now clearly shows that from your load value, you can actually now, from the load value of agriculture, you can build your infrastructure and then make it intermodal. Okay, so it's all about you. How are you looking at what your infrastructure funding or your capital funding is supposed to be unlocking? The moment you get how the metric works, then we're good to go.
Almost on the final note now, the fiscal strategies in 2021 includes deregulation, which is already on. That's a price of PMS. Yes. A verification exercise with eyepiece that also the ASU and I think lecturers are still having a face-off with the government trying to resolve that, and a service-based electricity tariff at this time. Now, all of this will definitely have an impact on the common man on the street. What do you make of it?
For me, the biggest and the best fiscal strategy or fiscal responsibility you can put in place is to make certain that you have, legal frameworks tying your service delivery. The moment you're able to get your legal frameworks, okay, now assuring that service is delivered and there's a cost or a price, for non-performance, then you're good to go. That is what it is. I think where we have the greatest challenge in developing, our physical component or ensuring it is that we have not been able to tie it to very firm legal frameworks. The moment that is done, okay, you're talking about ASU going on strike. If you have a service charter and that service charter is kept, then ASU has no business going on strike. Okay, now if they say everybody should go get on IPPS so that you can be able to have an idea, a commodity of what we are spending, who is spending it, who is getting it. ASU should be able to say why they don't want to go on IPPS. I don't have the full details, so I'm not going to be discussing it. But for me, I think fiscal responsibility all has to do with a lot of factors coming in. And in one word, it is what you call good governance. And good governance has demands. Okay, one of those demands is transparency. That is very, very, very critical in good governance. If you don't have transparency and the rule of law, then I don't know where else we are going to. So for me, I think, like I said to you, it's important that we think our country on a positive note, and then whatever things that can be able to ensure that the service providers now meet or, meet the obligations to, the people they are providing these services for, or otherwise, then there will be a consequence. Then we have a country that is growing, because it is on that basis that every other developed country, operates.
Dr. Emeka Okengwu, I must thank you very much for your time. It's always interesting having you join us on the show. Thanks for your analysis.
Thank you very much. It's always a pleasure to speak with you.
All right.